Daf Yomi, Tractate, Sanhedrin, page 61a, top of the page, with the word Asura, Reish Lakish Amar Muteres. We're right in the middle of an idea, so the idea that we were in the middle of discussing was, it was stated that with regard to one who slaughters an animal in order to sprinkle its blood in idol worship, or to burn its fat in idol worship, Rabbi Yochanan says, and that's the last line, now we're on the top of 61a, that it's usur, it's forbidden, it's prohibited, deriving benefit from the animal is prohibited, as it is considered an offering to idol worship, even if its blood was not ultimately sprinkled for idol worship, or its forbidden fat burned for that purpose. Reish Lakish Amar Muteres. And Reish Lakish says deriving benefit from the animal is permitted. Rava bar Rav Chanan concludes his analysis. According to Rabbi Yochanan, who derives this halacha from another source, this statement in the Braita worked out well. The verse that mentions the slaughter of an animal in idol worship apparently teaches a principle, as it is superfluous with regard to the halacha of slaughter itself, as stated in the Braita. But according to Reish Lakish, who does not derive from any verse that one can have intention from one rite to another rite, one needs this verse to derive precisely this halacha, that one can have intention from one rite to another rite. Consequently, the verse is not superfluous, and it cannot be assumed that it teaches a principle with regard to the forms of idol worship that are punishable by death. Maskif lo Rav Popo ulever Yochanan lo boikro ad kan lo ikro also Yochanan el behema. Aval Gavra lo ibar ketolohu ve'asakro lechai ve'Gavra leketolah. Rav Papa objects to this, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, does one not need a verse to teach the halacha in a case of intention from one rite, meaning one ritual to another, one rite to another rite? Rabbi Yochanan initially only prohibits deriving benefit from the animal. But, if not for this verse, the man who slaughtered the animal would not be liable to receive the death penalty. And therefore the verse comes to render the man liable to receive the death penalty. Therefore this verse is not superfluous according to Rabbi Yochanan either. Maskif la revacha beredev iko u'leish lakish mi boikro ad kan lo iko shari reish lakish el behema aval gavra bal katolahu mi dedahavi im shtachave lahar tehar mutar oivde b'sayif. Rav Acha, son of Rav Ika, objects to Rava bar Rav Chanan's challenge to the derivation in the Braita. Even according to Reish Lakish, does one need a verse to teach that the one who slaughtered the animal is liable? Reish Lakish only permits one to derive benefit from the animal, but the man is certainly liable to receive the death penalty. This is just as the halacha is in the case of one who bows to a mountain, as deriving benefit from the mountain is permitted, but nevertheless, the one who worshipped it is liable to be executed by the sword. Therefore, the verse that states that one who slaughters an offering in idol worship is liable to be executed is superfluous with regard to the issue of intention from one rite to another. Amar le Rav Acha midifti Ravino lemay de kamar le Rava bar Rav Chanan lebaye ema yotzi ishtachavoy lelamed al klal kulo echa ya'avdu limu'utei mai. Rav Acha of Difti said to Ravina, according to what Rava bar Rav Chanan said to Abaya, that there is room to say that bowing was singled out in the verse to teach, with regard to the entire category, that any honorable form of worship carries the death penalty. There is a difficulty with regard to the verse. Take heed to yourself that you not be ensnared to follow them, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? So I will do likewise, Deuteronomy 12:30, which indicates that one is liable for worshipping an idol in the manner that the Gentiles worship it. This is stated to exclude what? And if you would say that this verse is stated to exclude one who defecates before an idol that is worshipped by sacrificing offerings, it is not necessary to derive this halakha from this verse, as it is derived from the halakha of bowing to an idol as follows. Just as bowing is an honorable form of worship and is punishable by death, so too any honorable form of worship is punishable by death when performed as idol worship, which excludes an offensive act such as defecating. Therefore, the halakha that one is not liable for defecating before an idol can be derived from bowing. Rather, this verse is stated to exclude one who defecates before the idol called Mercury, which is not its typical manner of worship. It might enter your mind to say that since the standard manner of worship of Mercury, namely throwing stones at it, is, in any event, an act of degradation, so too one who performs any act of degradation, such as worship of Mercury, should be liable. Therefore, the verse teaches us that one is liable only for worshipping Mercury in the standard manner of worship. Because the Gemara raises an objection, but Rava bar Rav Chanan's interpretation of the verses appears to contradict that which Rabbi Eliezer says. From where is it derived that one who sacrifices an animal to Mercury is liable? As it is stated, and they shall no longer sacrifice their sacrifices to the satyrs. Leviticus 17, verse 7. Rabbi Eliezer explains, if the verse is not needed for the manner of one who worships an idol in its typical manner, meaning one who sacrifices an animal as an offering to an idol that is worshipped by sacrificing offerings, as the halakha in this case is already written in the aforementioned verse, how do these nations serve their gods? So I will do likewise. Apply it to the matter of one who worships an idol not in its typical manner, by sacrificing an offering to an idol that is not typically worshipped by sacrificing offerings. Therefore, one who sacrifices an offering to Mercury is liable even though that is not its typical form of worship. Shelo kedalka mishtachava. According to Rav bar Rav Chanan, by contrast, it is derived that one is liable for worshipping an idol in any honorable manner, even not in its typical manner of worship, from the halacha of bowing. The Gemara answers there in the verse mentioned by Rabbi Eliezer. The reference is to one who sacrifices an offering to Mercury not as a form of worship, but rather in order to express insolence toward the Torah prohibition against sacrificing an offering to an idol. It is derived from the verse that this too is a transgression of the prohibition and renders one liable for the death penalty. Rav Hamnuna irchasule toire pegabe rabo ramalei masniosin adodi tanan oivid avoid zara oivid in amir lo vehanan tanan oimer avoid elech ve'avoid nelech ve'navoid. The Gemara relates Rav Hamnuna lost his oxen and went to search for them. Rabbah met him and raised a contradiction between two Mishnayot. We learn in the Mishnah that one who worships idols is liable by inference One who worships idols, yes, he is liable. But one who merely says that he will worship idols is not liable. But didn't we learn in another Mishnah, 67a, one who says, I will worship an idol, or I will go and worship an idol, or let us go and worship an idol, is liable, just as one who actually worships an idol is liable? Evidently, one is liable for merely stating his intention to engage in idol worship. Amar le, I wonder why it was important to say that Rav Hamnuna lost his oxen. I mean, he could have said, Rabba asked Rav Hamnuna. Why was it important to say Rav Hamnuna irchasu le toire? It's like these things happen every day. Things that's not really relevant to the story, but they come up and they irchasu le toire. 1312 or 958. Lost his oxen. Rav Hamnuna lost his oxen. Yeah, I'll keep it like that. Okay. Where were we holding? So basically the question was, one who worships idols. Okay, Rabbah met him and raised a contradiction between two Mishnayos. We learned in the Mishnah, one who worships idols is liable. By inference, one who worships idols, yes, he is liable. One who merely says that he will worship an idol is not liable. But didn't we learn in another Mishnah, 67a, one who says, I will worship an idol, or I will go and worship an idol, or let us go and worship an idol is liable, just as one who actually worships an idol is liable? Evidently, one is liable for merely stating his intention to engage in idol worship. But when was he warned then? Maybe he doesn't need warning. Maybe idolatry doesn't need warning. Okay, technical points. Anyway, Amar le ba'omer ani mekabru alai elab avoida. Rav Hamnuna said to him, the Mishnah here was referring to one who states, I intend to accept this idol upon myself as a god only through worship. Consequently, he is liable only when he actually worships it. One who intends to accept an idol as a god immediately is liable even before he actually worships it. Rabbi Yosef, Omar, Tanai shikaltem yalma, Tanaihi, Titanya Omer boy bo ve'ivduni, Rabbi Meir Machai, Rabbi Yehuda pointed. Rabbi Yosef said, this answer is unnecessary. Have you removed the Tanaim from the world? Tanai shikaltem yalma. It is a dispute between Tanaim. As it is Tana Braita. In the case of one who says, I am a god, come and worship me, Rabbi Meir deems him liable for incitement to idol worship, and Rabbi Yehuda deems him exempt. Heichi biflachu kulialma diflachu de kulialma lo pligi dichsiv lo ta'aseh lecha pesel ki pligi B'dibura bi'alma, Remer Savar, Dibura milsahi, V'Rab Yehuda Savar, Dibura lav milsahi. The Gemara explains, in a case where those to whom the insider spoke subsequently worshipped him, everybody agrees that the insider is liable. Hecha diflechu kuli alma. In a case where the insider Hecha diflechu. In the case where those whom the insider spoke. Everyone agrees that insider is liable. Dichsiv lo tas lechapesel. Ki pligi b'dibura bi'alma. Rabbi Meir savar dibura milsehi. Rabbi Yehuda savar dibura lav milsehi. Interesting. Hechad. Lo pligi. Dichtiv lo tasu lecha pesel. You get that whole thing right. Right, Sanhedrin 61. Okay, nice. If you worshipped it, right, everyone agrees he is liable. It's written, you shall not make for yourself a graven image. Exodus 20, verse 4. It's yesterday's parsha. Which is interpreted to include a case where one establishes himself as a god. When they disagree, it is in a case where the incident ended in mere speech. Rabbi Meir holds that speech is a significant matter, and therefore the inciter is liable for incitement. Rabbi Yehuda holds that speech is nothing. Therefore, the contradiction between the Mishnayot can be resolved by attributing each Mishnah to a different Tana. Rabbi Yosef then said, after reconsidering the matter, what I said is not correct, and even according to Rabbi Yehuda, one is deemed liable for speech as well. As we learned in the Bride that Rabbi Yehuda says, actually, one is not liable unless he says, I will worship, or I will go and worship, or let us go and worship. Evidently, Rabbi Yehuda holds that one is liable even for speech alone, not only for actual worship. B'mai kamiflegi, b'meisit le'atzmo, v'amri le'in kamiflegi. Mar savar meisit le'atzmo, sham yile ve'in d'ka'amri le'kushtahu. Umar savar meisit le'atzmo lo shama le'meimar amri. Accordingly, with regard to what principle do Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda disagree? They disagree with regard to the case of one who incites others to worship him, and the others say to him, yes, we will worship you. One sage, Rabbi Meir, holds that when one incites others to worship him, they are apt to listen to him, and the response, yes, that they say to him is sincere. And one sage, Rabbi Yehuda, holds that when one incites others to worship him, they are not apt to listen to him, as they say to themselves, in what way is he different than us? The suggestion to worship him is nonsense, and the fact that they say to him yes is because they ridicule him.